Okay, so I've been looking at a range of different theoretical perspectives at the moment, and I've been looking at the way in which they view social life, and depending on the way that they view social life will depend upon the methodology that they tend to use. Now, at the pinnacle, at the core of this whole issue of sociologists and their different perspectives of using what kind of methods they wish to use is whether sociology should be really regarded as a science or not. Now, different theoretical perspectives will favour different methodological uses, and I think it's necessary. I think it's possible. At first, I think it's possible to tell really what kind of perspective really does favour the fact that the view that sociology should be regarded as a science or not, on the basis of what kind of methodology that they use. I think it's necessary. I think it's possible to actually tell. For example, you have functionalists, for example, who kind of view society as a very large-scale society, and it exists above and beyond individuals. It constructs their behaviour, these different institutions that exist, and they tend to really favour the use of things like official statistics, because they're able to look at different trends and demographics and the way that in which institutions will kind of socialise values into individuals and things like that. So they'll tend to favour the use of official statistics, and from favouring the use of official statistics, one can really tell at the core of it that functionalists are, in fact, science-based. They actually believe that social life can be scientific. Now, that's just an example of one perspective, but really at the pinnacle of perspectives with regards to whether sociology should be considered as a science or not is positivism and interpretivism. And I think positivism actually tends to view social life as really kind of existing above, on the same level as natural sciences. Sociology can be considered as a science. Social life can be measurable. It can be operationalized. These different variables, human life, just in the same way as scientific matter can be objectively quantified and, viewed without any imposition of values, so can social life. Now, in my opinion, I really don't think that. I think this is a load of malarkey. I don't really see how social life can be operationalised when you have a range, a vast array of different abstract concepts, because it is the study of individuals, it's the study of human life, and social behaviour, these complex interactions that take place. Now, you have these abstract concepts, emotions, feelings, thoughts and things like that can't be objectively quantified. Now, I'm personally talking from an interpretivist approach. Interpretivists really tend to favour the use of things like participant observations, things like interviews. They believe that in order to understand social life in itself and these complex interactions that take place between individuals in society, it's necessary to view society in the way that the individuals do in society. So that involves the researcher really kind of immersing themselves into a social group, really kind of delving in and viewing social life from the same perspective as these individuals. And I honestly think that this is the correct way to do so. But obviously there are a lot of problems that come with this kind of method. I mean, you have the problem of the researcher attempting to remain impartial. Now, obviously that's very difficult when there are really developed bonds and relationships within the social group that they're working in. So I don't necessarily think it's impossible to do, but I obviously think it's very difficult to attempt to remain impartial when conducting research on social life. So there's an element of bias when it comes to using that type of methodology. Now, I do honestly think sociology really should not be considered as a science. There's so many studies that really have taken place. Durkheim, who was a functionalist and who was widely regarded as a positivist, his study on suicide and social facts, he attempted to kind of find a relationship between social facts, as he considered them as things that can be operationalized and made measurable. He thought it was possible, and he thought that it was possible to kind of develop a relationship between social facts and suicidal rates from official statistics, and that would be completely objective. But then there comes the problem, I'm thinking, of these suicidal rates and whether they really are objective. I feel that suicidal rates, things like official statistics, aren't truly objective at all. I think that there are definitely sociologists out here who, what I'm about to say, it will make sense if you read up on their work. But Atkins, for example, he stated that in terms of official statistics and suicidal rates, coroners, who really do determine whether a death is a suicide or not, it's very subjectively based. Coroners decide whether deaths are suicides or not, depending on a number of extraneous factors. So things like the presence of a suicide note will support the fact that they will judge the death scene as a suicide has taken place. Things like evidence of a hanging is, obvious evidence that a suicide has taken place. But sometimes it's very difficult to kind of determine whether a suicide has taken place or not. And I think in those circumstances, a coroner will decide based on, their subjective judgment. And from this, they will record the number of suicides that have taken place on their terms, and this will be reflected in official statistics, which are claimed to be extremely objective. So therefore, I've come to the conclusion that really nothing in sociology is truly objective. No methodology is truly value-free. Participant observations aren't, definitely not. Unstructured interviews, even structured interviews for that matter, because they need to be interpreted. Questionnaires, anywhere where there's the development of, qualitative data being produced, I don't think that anything can really be value-free. Even when it comes to quantitative data, I don't think that anything can be value-free, because quantitative data needs to be interpreted. These trends that are developed need to be interpreted. So I don't think sociology at all is truly scientific for all those reasons. And that's basically what I have been studying at the moment. I find it, highly fascinating. So thank you for listening.